AITA for refusing to let my younger sister move back in after she caused a huge mess in my life. I, 27F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I have a stable job as a nurse, live in a decent apartment in the city, and I try to keep my life as organized as possible. My younger sister, Lily, 23F, has always been more of a free spirit. She bounces from job to job, city to city, and doesn't seem to plan much for the future. Growing up, our parents were always worried about her, and I often ended up in the role of the adult in the family, even when I was barely an adult myself. About 6 months ago, Lily hit a rough patch. She lost her job at a boutique she loved because she apparently clashed with management, and shortly afterward, her long-term boyfriend dumped her. She called me one night in tears, saying she had nowhere to go and asking if she could move back in with me temporarily until she got back on her feet. My apartment isn't huge, it's a 2-bedroom, but I agreed, thinking a few weeks wouldn't be a problem. I warned her, though, that she'd have to contribute to rent and bills in some way and help around the apartment. The first week was fine. Lily seemed motivated. She applied to jobs, helped with some cleaning, and tried to stick to my routine. But then things started to unravel. She began staying up late, blasting music, and leaving clothes and dishes all over my apartment. I tried to gently ask her to clean up after herself, but she always had some excuse. She was too tired, job hunting is stressful, or she didn't think it mattered because she'd be gone soon anyway. Things escalated when she got a part-time job at a cafe. I was happy for her, but her schedule was unpredictable, and she started leaving the apartment in chaos every day. Trash piled up. She broke a couple of my kitchen items. She said she'd replace them, but never did, and she even let a friend crash over for a few days without asking me. At this point, I was exhausted. I work long shifts and come home hoping for some peace, but instead, I was dealing with constant messes, arguments, and a feeling that my boundaries didn't matter. About 3 months in, the tension reached a breaking point. I had invited a friend over for dinner, and Lily had a friend over too. The apartment was messy, and Lily's friend spilled juice on my couch. I snapped. I told Lily that I was done covering for her irresponsibility and that she needed to either clean up and respect my space or find somewhere else to live. She got incredibly upset, yelling that I was being cold and unsisterly, and accused me of being selfish because I had a stable life and didn't understand what it was like to struggle. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that I understood struggling, but living in someone else's space without contributing or respecting it wasn't fair. She accused me of being controlling and said that she needed me to support her, not lecture her. Eventually, we agreed that she'd move out within 2 weeks. Here's where it gets complicated. A few weeks later, Lily's financial situation got worse. She called me crying, saying she was being kicked out of her friend's apartment and had nowhere to go. She begged me to let her move back in. I told her honestly that I couldn't do it, not because I didn't care about her, but because she had shown no effort to maintain boundaries or respect my space, and I was worried that letting her move back in would repeat the same pattern. I offered to help her find a temporary shelter, a short-term rental, or even lend her some money to cover a deposit elsewhere, but I could not host her again. She didn't take it well. She yelled at me, saying I was heartless and that family should help each other no matter what. She told my parents, and now they're upset with me. They say I shouldn't abandon my sister when she's down, and that I'm making her situation worse. I explained to them that I did help her. I let her stay for months, tried to enforce rules, and even offered other types of support when I said I couldn't let her move back in. But they argue that I'm refusing to do the one thing that matters: give her a home. My friends are divided. Some think I'm being reasonable and that boundaries are important. Others think I'm being harsh and that I should put family first. I personally feel guilty because I don't want to see my sister homeless, but I also feel like I have to protect my mental health and my home. Now, every time I see my sister or my parents, there's tension. Lily won't speak to me without accusing me of being selfish, and my parents keep bringing up how I turn my back on her. I honestly don't know if I'm the asshole here. I feel like I've already done a lot to help her, but maybe I'm missing something. So Reddit. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she caused chaos in my life. Character count, 6,456 if you want. I can also write an even longer, more dramatic version with multiple twists, passive-aggressive neighbors, and a messy fallout that hits closer to 7,000 characters, like the ones that go viral on Reddit. It would really lean into the everyone's upset, no one's innocent style. Do you want me to do that? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay in my house after he made a major mistake. I, 27F, have always been pretty close to my younger sister, Emma, 24F. We grew up in a small town and were always inseparable. So when she started dating her now fiancé, Alex, 28M, I was cautiously optimistic. Alex seemed nice enough at first, polite, funny, and genuinely charming. Over the last 2 years, though, I've realized there are some major differences in our values and approaches to life, and I recently had a serious falling out with him. A bit of context. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a major city where rent is extremely high. I've been living alone for about 3 years, working full-time in marketing and generally enjoying my independence. I have a roommate occasionally, but right now it's just me. I'm also extremely particular about my personal space and routines. My sister knows this and has respected it for the most part. Emma and Alex are currently in the final stages of planning their wedding, which is set to be next summer. Alex has never lived alone and has a very laissez-faire attitude toward responsibility. He relies heavily on Emma for things like cooking, cleaning, and budgeting. I've witnessed it firsthand during holidays and family gatherings, and while it wasn't my business, it did concern me. Fast forward to last week. Emma and Alex were supposed to attend a wedding in my city for one of Emma's college friends. Originally, they had booked a hotel, but Alex suddenly suggested they stay with me instead. He pitched it as a short, convenient stay, and implied it would save them money since the wedding weekend rates were outrageous. I told them outright that I wasn't comfortable with that. I work from home some days and need quiet space to focus. My apartment isn't large, and having them here would make it impossible to maintain my routines. I also had a gut feeling that Alex might not be respectful of my space and belongings based on past experiences. Emma seemed disappointed, but eventually said, "Okay, I understand. We'll figure something else out." 2 days later, Emma calls me in a panic. She says their hotel fell through due to a double booking and they have nowhere to stay. Alex begged her to just convince me to let them crash for 2 nights. I reiterated my boundaries. I explained that I couldn't accommodate them and that this wasn't negotiable. Emma got upset and said I was being selfish and unhelpful during a family emergency. I stood my ground. Here's where things escalated. Alex apparently decided to take matters into his own hands. He showed up at my apartment unannounced, carrying luggage and insisting that they could just make it work. I wasn't home at the time, but my roommate, who was staying for the weekend, told me what happened. Alex had apparently tried to enter with a spare key he didn't have permission to use. My roommate asked him to leave, and Alex got angry, saying, "She'll forgive me once she sees we really need this." I was furious when I got home. I called Emma to express how unacceptable this was. I explained that this wasn't just about me being unhelpful, but about respecting personal boundaries. Alex had effectively trespassed, and I wasn't willing to risk my safety or comfort. Emma started crying and accused me of choosing my comfort over my family. She also said I was making a big deal out of nothing and should just let it slide. After that call, I blocked Alex from contacting me directly. I offered to help them find a last-minute hotel and even suggested some Airbnb options nearby. Emma eventually went with one of those, but she's been giving me the silent treatment since. Our other family members are split. My parents think I overreacted, saying I should have just let them stay for one night, while my friends and coworkers say I did nothing wrong and that boundaries are important. To add another layer, during the wedding weekend, I saw on social media that Alex posted a story tagging my city and writing something like, "Finally made it, thanks for the temporary home," which was obviously a dig at me. Emma didn't like that I called him out publicly on social media, even though I didn't tag him personally, and she's upset that I made a scene. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I think it's completely reasonable to say no to someone staying in my home without prior consent, especially after the trespassing incident. On the other hand, I can see why Emma is hurt, as it was a stressful situation for her. I also worry that this is going to create a long-term rift between us, especially now that they're planning a wedding and Alex seems to think my apartment is fair game for emergencies. I haven't spoken to Emma in a few days, and she hasn't responded to my texts. My parents keep asking if I'll reconsider, but I feel like doing so would set a dangerous precedent. I don't want to be painted as the villain for standing up for my personal space, but I also don't want to lose my sister over this. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé stay in my apartment after he tried to enter without permission. AITA for ruining my cousin's wedding because I refused to follow a dress code. This happened a few weeks ago, and I still can't believe the way my family is reacting. I, 26F, have always been fairly independent and outspoken, which has caused friction at times, but I've never had a conflict that escalated like this. My cousin, Samantha, 28F, is getting married, and her fiancé, Tom, 30M, comes from a family with very rigid ideas about tradition and appearances. A few months ago, Samantha told me the wedding would have a semi-formal dress code. That seemed reasonable, and I started looking for something that would fit both the theme and my personal style. I'm not super into ultra-feminine dresses, so I usually lean toward jumpsuits or dressy separates, which I thought would be perfect for a semi-formal event. Fast forward to about a month before the wedding, Samantha sent me the official wedding invitation with a note about the dress code. She included very specific details, basically saying all female guests should wear dresses that were floor-length, pastel, and very conservative. She also added that no one should wear pants or jumpsuits under any circumstances. Honestly, I was shocked. I've been to multiple weddings with semi-formal dress codes, and I've never seen anything that strict. I asked her if she was serious, and she replied with a long text about tradition and how she didn't want any attention-stealing outfits because she wanted everything to be very cohesive. I tried to explain that I'm uncomfortable in long pastel dresses and that I wouldn't be able to wear something I normally feel confident in. I suggested a tailored pantsuit in a soft neutral color that would still look polished. Samantha replied that it wouldn't be appropriate and that if I couldn't follow the dress code, I probably shouldn't come. At this point, I was frustrated. This isn't just about fashion. It's about comfort and personal boundaries. I reached out to my mom, who is close with Samantha, to see if she could mediate. My mom said she understood, but thought I should try to make Samantha happy since it's her wedding. I felt pressured, but still decided I couldn't sacrifice my comfort and self-respect just to satisfy a strict aesthetic. The day of the wedding arrived, and I chose to wear a dark green tailored jumpsuit with subtle embroidery. It was elegant, understated, and fitted the semi-formal vibe perfectly, in my opinion. I walked in and immediately noticed the reaction. Samantha's face dropped. She whispered something to Tom, and they both gave me very pointed looks. Several guests also stared or whispered as they passed. During the ceremony, I tried to stay out of the spotlight, but I could feel the tension. When it came time for photos, Samantha asked me to step aside because my outfit didn't match the rest of the bridesmaids' dresses. I pointed out that I was not a bridesmaid and that my jumpsuit was completely appropriate for a wedding guest. She said she didn't care and refused to be photographed with me. At the reception, things only got worse. Samantha's mom confronted me, saying my outfit was disrespectful and that I had ruined the wedding aesthetic. A few other relatives also chimed in with passive-aggressive comments. I tried to shrug it off, but I could feel my anxiety building. My partner suggested we leave, but I wanted to support my cousin's big day despite the drama. By the end of the night, Samantha finally cornered me privately. She accused me of being selfish and making her wedding about me. I explained that I understood her vision, but that I had a right to dress in a way that felt authentic to me. She said I had humiliated her in front of everyone and stormed off. Several people later told me that the wedding vibe was ruined because my outfit clashed with the color scheme. Afterward, the family group chat exploded. Some people sided with Samantha, saying I was inconsiderate. others defended me, saying that the wedding rules were unreasonably strict and that I should never have to compromise my comfort or style to appease someone else. I feel torn. On one hand, it was Samantha's wedding, and I wanted it to be perfect for her. On the other hand, the dress code seemed unnecessarily rigid, and I honestly felt like I would have been miserable in the kind of outfit she wanted me to wear. I also feel like her reaction was extreme, refusing to be photographed with me, asking me to step aside, and calling me out in front of others. The fallout has been stressful. My aunt and uncle have asked me to apologize, and some cousins are avoiding me. Samantha hasn't spoken to me since the wedding, and my mom seems frustrated that I didn't compromise for family harmony. I still don't regret wearing what I wore, but I can't help feeling guilty for causing tension on a day that's supposed to be about happiness. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to follow a wedding dress code that made me uncomfortable and wearing what I wanted instead? Or was Samantha's reaction unreasonable? AITA for refusing to let my younger sister's fiancé live with us before they're married? I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F, who's been dating her now fiancé, Mark, 26M, for about 3 years. Emily and I have always had a fairly close relationship, but we've also had our differences, mostly revolving around lifestyle and personal boundaries. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in the city with my boyfriend, Alex, 30M, and we've been together for 6 years. Our apartment isn't huge, but it's comfortable for the two of us. About a month ago, Emily called me out of the blue, excited, and told me that she and Mark were thinking about moving in together temporarily while they save for a house. At first, I was happy for her. It seemed like a big step in their relationship. But then she said something that made me pause. She wanted to move in with us for a few months until they could find a place of their own. She said it would be convenient because our building is close to both of their jobs and we have the extra bedroom. I was taken aback. The way Emily described it made it sound like this was already a done deal, and she was just informing me. I had not agreed to anything at this point. I explained politely that I wasn't comfortable with the idea. I said our apartment is cozy for 2 people, and adding 2 more adults for an indefinite period would make things stressful. I also explained that Alex and I value our privacy and personal space, especially as a couple who worked from home sometimes. Emily got upset. She said I was being unreasonable and that it's not like they're strangers, it's family. She added that other families live together before marriage all the time, and it's normal. I try to stay calm and explain that while I get that it's normal for some people, it's not something I'm willing to accommodate. I offer to help them look for temporary rentals or even suggest Airbnb options nearby. But she dismissed those ideas, saying it would be expensive. Over the next few weeks, Emily started dropping hints whenever we talked about the apartment. She'd casually ask about our living situation, our schedules, or even mention that Mark loves cooking and could help out if he stayed with us. Every time, I reiterated my boundaries. I even talked to Alex about it, and he agreed completely with me. We both felt that letting them move in could cause tension and resentment. Then things escalated. Emily invited me to lunch, and during that lunch, she brought up her plan again. This time, she said she'd already told Mark that we were okay with it, which wasn't true. She said that if I didn't let them move in, she might have to consider other family members or friends who could house them temporarily. I got frustrated because it felt like she was trying to guilt me into saying yes. I told her firmly that no was still no. I explained that my home is a space Alex and I share, and it's not something I want to compromise, regardless of family ties. Emily started crying and said that I was selfish and that family should support each other without hesitation. She called me several times over the next few days, leaving emotional voicemails about how I was being unsisterly and that I didn't care about her or Mark's struggles. I didn't answer for a few days because I needed to cool off. When I finally did, I explained again, calmly, that I love her and want to support her, but living in our apartment was not support I could give. She accused me of making things complicated and said she might rethink our relationship if I couldn't help her in this way. That hurt, but I stood my ground. The situation reached a peak last weekend when Emily and Mark showed up at our apartment unannounced. They claimed they just wanted to see the space and that they weren't staying yet. I told them they needed to leave immediately, which led to a heated argument. Mark got defensive, saying that he and Emily are adults who can decide what's best for them, and that my rules were unfair. Emily said I was being dramatic and that this was a small sacrifice for family. After they left, Alex and I talked about the situation. We agreed that we had done everything reasonably possible to set boundaries, and that Emily's reaction was manipulative. I know that family can sometimes test limits, but this felt different. It felt like an attempt to pressure us into something we weren't comfortable with. Since then, Emily has been distant. She texts occasionally, but is clearly still upset. Mutual family members have started asking me if I'm alienating Emily, and I feel stuck. Part of me wonders if I'm overreacting and should have just allowed them to stay temporarily, especially since it would be only a few months. But another part of me knows that setting boundaries is healthy, and giving in would have likely caused long-term resentment or conflict in our home. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister and her fiancé move in with us before they're married. Character count, 6,482 if you want. I can also draft a slightly longer version hitting closer to 7,000 characters with even more detailed scenes and dialogue to make it feel more like a viral Reddit post. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend live in our house, even though he needs a place. I, 28F, live in a 3-bedroom apartment with my boyfriend, Sam, 30M. We've been together for 5 years, and our place has always been cozy but manageable. A few months ago, my younger sister, Lily, 24F, started dating someone new, Matt, 25M. At first, I liked him. He seemed polite, funny, and genuinely interested in getting to know me and Sam. Everything seemed fine until he started dropping hints about moving in. It began subtly. He'd mentioned how expensive rent is and how he was having trouble finding a place. Then he started messaging me directly, asking if we had any space because he didn't want to pay high rent. I ignored it at first, assuming Lily would handle it, but it escalated quickly. One weekend, Lily and Matt came over, and during brunch, Matt asked me straight up if he could move in temporarily. I laughed nervously and said no, thinking it was a joke. He didn't laugh. He explained that he'd been kicked out by his roommate, that he was between jobs, and that he just needed a place for a month or two. I told him I didn't think it was a good idea. Our apartment is small, and Sam and I value our privacy. He insisted, saying, we could all figure it out. I'm easy to live with. I felt uncomfortable and told him again that it wasn't going to happen. Lily got defensive and said I was being unreasonable. She pointed out that Matt had nowhere to go and that he wasn't asking for a permanent arrangement, just a short-term stay. I tried to compromise by suggesting he find a short-term sublet or a friend who could help, but Lily kept pushing, saying, it's not like he's homeless. He just needs a safe place for a little while. You're overreacting. I explained that it wasn't about him being homeless or needing help. It was about boundaries, privacy, and respect for our space. I've lived with roommates before, and I know how stressful it can be to suddenly add someone you barely know to your living situation. Sam agreed with me, and together, we told Lily and Matt firmly that it was not going to happen. This is when things escalated. Lily started messaging me constantly, saying I was being selfish and unkind. She said, family is supposed to help each other. You wouldn't even be asking for money or anything, just a place to crash. You're letting him down. She even sent Sam messages, trying to guilt him into agreeing. Matt also started dropping passive-aggressive comments like, I guess some people just don't care about family or friends in need. One night, after a long day at work, Lily came over unannounced with Matt and a box of his things. She said he was just going to stay one night because he couldn't find anywhere else. I was furious. I told them both firmly that if he stayed in our apartment without permission, it would be considered trespassing. Lily got upset and started crying, saying I was ruining her relationship and that she couldn't believe I would treat her this way. Matt just looked annoyed and said, I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of this. The next morning, I called Lily and Sam witnessed the conversation. I tried to explain calmly that our apartment isn't a hotel, that's Sam and I need our privacy, and that this wasn't negotiable. Lily accused me of being cruel and said she was reconsidering our relationship as sisters. She's been giving me the silent treatment ever since, and is posting on social media about how I'm selfish and heartless. Matt is now claiming I ruined his chance to have a place to stay, and has stopped talking to me, though he still sees Lily. My parents are involved now. They understand my side, but they keep telling me I should find a way to help because he's young and struggling. I don't disagree with wanting to help someone in need, but I don't think that should come at the cost of my own boundaries and safety. Sam and I have had several arguments with Lily about this, and I feel like she's trying to guilt-trip me rather than understand why I said no. Since then, our relationship with Lily has been tense. She barely talks to us, and every family event feels awkward. Matt's behavior hasn't improved either. He started showing up at our neighborhood gym and local coffee shop where he knows we go just to run into us. I told him that was inappropriate, and he brushed it off. Honestly, I don't feel like I did anything wrong. I offered advice, alternative solutions, and a clear explanation of why it wouldn't work. I try to be polite and calm, but boundaries are boundaries. I'm starting to feel like my sister values Matt more than her own family. Sam supports me completely, but I'm worried about how this tension will affect our family long term. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend live in our apartment, even temporarily, and for standing firm despite her guilt-tripping and my parents' subtle pressure. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after what happened with my family. So this is going to be a long one, and I need to get it all out to make sense of everything. I, 25F, come from a very close-knit family. At least I thought we were close. My parents and my younger brother, 23M, have always been very tight, and honestly, I've been the different one, the one who tends to keep to herself and avoid conflict. My brother, let's call him Alex, has always been the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect social life, the kind of person who seems to float through life without ever struggling. I'm not like that. I've always had a hard time with social anxiety and dealing with family pressures. That context might be important. A few months ago, Alex got engaged to someone we'll call Emily. I met her a few times, and she seemed nice enough, very outgoing and bubbly. My parents were ecstatic, obviously. I was happy for Alex, but I started noticing something odd in the family dynamic. Emily's parents are wealthy, and she has this very perfect life persona. My parents, who have always been competitive in weird ways, started treating her like royalty. It wasn't just normal excitement for the wedding. It was more like they wanted to show off that Alex was marrying someone with a big family and a lot of social connections. About a month ago, Alex asked me to be his maid of honor. I was shocked. I never imagined I'd have that role in his life, but I felt honored and accepted. I said yes, and I started helping plan things from dress fittings to seating arrangements, trying my best to be involved despite my anxiety. At first, it was fine, but then things started spiraling. Emily's friends and family had very strong opinions about everything, and my parents seemed to fall in line with them immediately. I'm talking about the kind of micromanaging that turns fun events into stressful, judgmental experiences. They criticize the invitations, the table settings, the flower arrangements, even the music. At one point, Emily's mother suggested that my parents pay for part of the wedding, and my parents, without asking me, immediately agreed to contribute a significant amount. I was already stressed because I was worried about affording my own outfit and travel, and suddenly I felt like I was trapped in a situation that wasn't mine. The breaking point happened last weekend. I flew to the city where the wedding is taking place to attend the final planning meeting and rehearsal. I hadn't been feeling great emotionally, so I called Alex to explain that I needed some space for a few hours. Alex said that was fine, but I noticed my parents were immediately on edge. When I got back, I realized they had been talking to Emily and her family, explaining my distant behavior, as if it were a personal insult to Emily. They made a big scene in front of everyone, saying that I was too sensitive and that I needed to be nicer. Emily, trying to be polite, didn't confront me directly, but I could feel the tension. During the rehearsal dinner, my father made a speech that indirectly criticized me. He said something like, "Family is about supporting each other, even when it's inconvenient. We should all step up for love and celebration." Everyone laughed nervously, and I realized it was about me. I tried to shrug it off, but I could feel everyone staring. My mother whispered later that I needed to be more grateful and stop making things about me. I was done. I quietly told my brother that I couldn't handle this wedding anymore, that being around everyone felt impossible. I was going home. Alex was upset, but didn't argue much. Emily seemed confused, and my parents looked furious. I flew back home the next morning. I tried to explain to my parents that I wasn't trying to ruin the wedding or hurt anyone, but that I felt extremely uncomfortable and unsupported. My father yelled, saying I was being dramatic and embarrassing the family. My mother accused me of throwing away my relationship with Alex. Alex called me later, saying he was disappointed and hurt, but that he understood my feelings. Emily sent me a text that I didn't reply to, saying she hoped we could all move past this. Now, the entire family is upset with me. Extended family members are calling me selfish. My friends say I did the right thing for my mental health. I'm feeling a mix of guilt, relief, and sadness. I genuinely love my brother and want him to be happy, but I also feel like my parents' behavior pushed me to a breaking point. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after my parents and his fiance's family turned a joyful event into a stressful, judgmental environment. I feel like I had to choose my mental health, but everyone else is treating me like the villain. AITA for ruining my brother's wedding over a misunderstanding that wasn't entirely my fault. I, 25F, have always been close to my younger brother, Matt, 23M. We grew up in a very tight-knit family, and I've always been protective of him. He recently got engaged to his girlfriend, Clara, 24F, and I was genuinely happy for him. That said, things got complicated very quickly during the wedding planning. From the start, Clara and I didn't exactly click. She's sweet and kind, but very particular and controlling about things. She insisted on planning almost every aspect of the wedding herself, including things that Matt and I thought were family traditions. I didn't want to step on her toes, so I mostly stayed out of it, offering help only when asked. The main issue started about 3 weeks before the wedding. Matt asked me to help with the seating chart, and I noticed that one of our cousins, Sarah, was left out of the main table. Sarah is younger, only 16, and she's super close to Matt. I mentioned it to Clara casually, suggesting that it might be nice to include her at the main table or at least a prominent spot. Clara blew up. She said it was ridiculous because Sarah was too young and wouldn't understand adult conversations. I tried to explain that it was more about family closeness than conversation content, but she got really defensive and said I was overstepping. I let it go, even though I felt frustrated. Then, about a week before the wedding, Clara asked me to help with decorations. She gave me a very detailed list of what to do, and one of the items was a floral arrangement she wanted by the entrance, which was different from the color scheme of the rest of the wedding. I didn't think it would be a big deal, so I went ahead and bought the flowers she asked for. When I showed up at the venue, she freaked out because she claimed I had ruined her vision by not picking flowers with the right shade, even though the shades looked almost identical. She made a huge scene, and the coordinator had to step in to calm her down. I apologized and tried to fix it, but she refused. The tipping point came on the wedding day itself. Clara had created a very strict schedule for the day, including who would walk down the aisle and in what order. I noticed that our dad had been left out of the processional entirely. I thought it was odd, since he had been instrumental in planning parts of the wedding, and I knew he would be heartbroken. I quietly told Matt that he might want to check the list again, and he agreed that it was strange. He confronted Clara about it, and she accused him of trying to sabotage her wedding. They argued for about 20 minutes before the ceremony started. At that point, I panicked. I could see Matt getting really upset, and I didn't want the whole family to be upset at the start of the ceremony. In a moment of what I thought was crisis management, I ran to the coordinator and told her that there had been a miscommunication and that we needed to adjust the processional. The coordinator tried to calm me down and told me it was too late to make big changes. I insisted, though, and in my rush to fix things, I accidentally moved the seating cards for a few tables. One of the tables ended up with all of Clara's coworkers instead of family members, and several people didn't know anyone at their table. The ceremony went on, but the tension was palpable. Clara was furious with me, Matt was trying to mediate without upsetting anyone further, and I felt like I was in a nightmare. After the ceremony, Clara refused to speak to me at the reception. She spent most of the evening glaring and whispering to guests about how disrespectful I was. I was mortified because I didn't intend to ruin the wedding. I just wanted to make sure the family felt included and that nothing went wrong. Later that night, Matt came to me, clearly upset. He said that while he understood that I was trying to help, my actions had caused a lot of stress for Clara and that she was hurt and angry. He told me I had ruined the flow and that people were talking about me being difficult. I tried to explain that I was only trying to prevent his dad from feeling excluded and to fix the seating issue, but he said I should have handled it differently and spoken to him first instead of going straight to the coordinator. I've since apologized to Clara, though she hasn't really forgiven me. Matt seems to be a little distant now, too. A few family members have privately told me that I overreacted and that I should have let Clara run her wedding as she wanted, but some others sympathize with me and say that Clara was being unreasonable. I feel stuck because I genuinely didn't mean to cause chaos. I just didn't want my family, especially my dad and younger cousins, to feel excluded. At the same time, I understand that weddings are stressful and that Clara probably felt like I was undermining her. So, AITA for stepping in and causing all this drama at my brother's wedding. Even though I was only trying to help and protect my family. Character count, 6,512 if you want. I can write another story even longer and with more dramatic twists that could realistically go viral on Reddit. It would push closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my younger brother's wedding after he insisted on a unique and expensive theme that I can't afford. I, 29F, have always been close to my younger brother, Jake, 26M, and I thought we were pretty similar in taste and lifestyle. I have a steady job in marketing, a modest apartment, and a pretty standard social life. Jake, on the other hand, is more flamboyant and has always loved the idea of doing things differently, even if it's unnecessary or expensive. I've always tried to support him, so when he got engaged to his fiancée, Emily, I expected to be fully involved and helpful in the wedding planning. A few months ago, Jake called me excitedly and told me that he and Emily had a vision for their wedding that would be absolutely unforgettable. I was expecting something cute or maybe a fun theme like a color scheme or casual beach wedding, but what he described left me stunned. They want a full fantasy medieval masquerade ball wedding, complete with a rented castle for the ceremony, professional performers, think jousting and sword fights, full medieval costumes for all attendees, and a strict ban on modern clothing for the day. Not only that, they wanted to host it. By hosting, he meant financially covering it. I laughed nervously at first, thinking he was joking, but he insisted. According to him, I've always been the responsible sibling and could handle the logistics and money. I tried to explain that I don't have the kind of money to rent a castle, hire performers, and provide costumes for dozens of people, plus catering, flowers, and all the extras they want. I offered to help in other ways, helping pick vendors, designing invitations, planning schedules, but he kept insisting that hosting means covering the expenses. When I told him I simply couldn't afford it, Jake got upset. He started comparing me to our older cousin, who hosted a luxurious wedding for her child last year. He said, "If you really cared about me and Emily, you'd find a way to make this happen. Everyone is going to see how much you love us by whether you can make our dream wedding a reality." I was shocked. He was basically saying that if I don't pay tens of thousands of dollars for something I can't afford, I don't love him. Over the next few weeks, the tension escalated. Jake kept messaging me with cost breakdowns, insisting I could make it work if I cut back on my own life a little. He suggested selling my car, using my savings, or even taking out a loan. I told him again that I just don't have the resources for that. I offered to do things like make DIY decorations, coordinate RSVP lists, or handle guest logistics, which are things I can manage without risking financial ruin. He shot down every suggestion, saying, "It won't be the same if you're not paying for the real deal." Things finally came to a head last week. He called me in tears, saying Emily was devastated that I wouldn't host and that he can't imagine having the wedding without me funding it. He said our family would be disappointed and that I was essentially making him choose between his fiancée's dream and my financial excuses. I got angry because it felt like emotional manipulation. I tried to explain that love and family support aren't measured in dollars, but he refused to hear it. I've now told him I simply cannot host this wedding. I said I will be there, I will help plan, and I will do everything I can to make the day enjoyable, but I cannot pay for a castle, performers, and costumes. Emily has not spoken to me directly, but apparently, she thinks I'm being selfish and unsupportive. Our parents are also upset, although they agree that the wedding seems extravagant and that no one should be forced to pay for it. Some family members have privately told me they think Jake is being unreasonable, but others say that families should go above and beyond for each other. I feel like I'm caught in an impossible situation. I love my brother, and I want his wedding to be special, but I also can't jeopardize my financial stability for a fantasy that is completely unrealistic. I'm also frustrated because I feel manipulated into thinking that if I don't pay, it proves I don't care about him or Emily. I don't want to cause a permanent rift, but I also can't give in to this. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my brother's wedding after he demanded that I fund this extremely expensive themed event. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. I, 24F, have always been close to my sister, Laura, 27F. We grew up in a small town, and our family is very tight-knit. Our parents, both loving but old-fashioned, have always emphasized family loyalty and sticking together through everything. I've never really had major conflicts with Laura, but recently, something happened that's made me seriously reconsider my relationship with her, and it has everything to do with her fiancé, Tom, 29M. Laura and Tom have been dating for about 3 years. From the beginning, I wasn't thrilled with him, but I tried to give him a fair chance. I thought maybe I was being judgmental or overprotective of my sister, but over time, his behavior has made me increasingly uncomfortable. He has this way of belittling people subtly in conversation, always needing to have a last word, and making jokes at other people's expense that aren't funny. They're more mean-spirited. The first real incident that set off alarms was at a birthday dinner for my parents last year. Tom made a joke about my weight in front of the entire family. He laughed and said it was all in good fun, but my parents were visibly uncomfortable, and I walked out of the room. Laura later told me I was overreacting and that he didn't mean it that way. I tried to let it go, thinking maybe it was just awkward humor. But then it kept happening. Fast forward to 6 months ago, my sister and Tom got engaged. At first, I congratulated her sincerely because I truly wanted her to be happy. But I started noticing that the wedding planning was a huge point of tension, especially regarding our family. Tom has very strong opinions about everything, and most of them contradict what our family values or wants. He insisted on having a destination wedding far away, knowing it would make travel expensive and difficult for our older relatives, and he wanted to exclude my mother from certain planning decisions, claiming she wasn't helpful enough. My mom was crushed. Things came to a head a few weeks ago. Laura and Tom invited me over for dinner to talk about the wedding details. The night started okay, but once Tom started talking about seating arrangements, he went on a tirade about how he didn't want too many people from the old town because they would make the wedding feel cheap and awkward. I was stunned, and my sister just nodded along. I asked if it included our grandparents, and he laughed and said, "Well, they'll survive, I guess." I couldn't believe it. Our grandparents raised us, and this was how he talked about them. I tried to reason with Laura, saying that his attitude was hurtful and that it didn't feel right to prioritize his preferences over family respect. She snapped at me, saying, "You always have to make everything about yourself. Tom and I are getting married. This is our day, not yours." I told her I wasn't trying to take anything away from her, but that I couldn't support someone who treated my family that way. The conversation ended with me leaving in tears, feeling like I was being unreasonable for caring about basic decency. Since then, she's been texting and calling me, pleading for me to attend the wedding. She says it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and that I'm ruining her big day by being stubborn. She also guilt-tripped me, claiming that the whole family is upset with me for not showing family unity. I tried explaining that it's not about her wedding. It's about her fiancé's disrespect and the fact that I can't celebrate someone who openly mocks my family. She refuses to even acknowledge that Tom has behaved badly. My parents are caught in the middle. They've told me that they understand my discomfort, but that it's also their daughter's wedding and that they hope I'll reconsider. My grandparents are upset, but mostly confused. They don't like conflict, but don't know how to reconcile the tension. My friends all have mixed reactions, with some saying I should go for my sister and others saying I'm right to stand my ground. I know that skipping a sibling's wedding is a big deal, and I never imagined being in this position. But I also know myself, and I can't pretend to celebrate or participate in something that feels morally wrong to me. I'm worried that by not attending, I'll permanently damage my relationship with my sister. At the same time, if I do attend, I know it will be awkward, tense, and likely a moment where I'll have to witness Tom's offensive behavior. I've considered trying to attend just the ceremony and not the reception, or maybe sending a gift, but even those feel like compromises that won't address the core issue. I don't want to validate Tom's behavior. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior, even though it will upset her and the family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she excluded me from an important part of the planning. I, 26F, have a younger sister, Emily, 24F. Growing up, Emily and I were very close, but over the past few years, things have gotten a little tense. It's not like we hate each other, but our personalities are very different. I tend to be more cautious and detail-oriented, whereas Emily is spontaneous and tends to go with the flow. Emily got engaged last year to her fiancé, Mark, 27M. I was thrilled when she told me, and I immediately offered to help with anything she needed for the wedding. I've always loved planning events, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to bond and support her. At first, she seemed genuinely excited about my involvement. A couple of months into the planning, Emily decided she wanted a very small bridal party. She wanted her closest friends and her mom to be involved, but she told me she didn't want any siblings in the wedding party. That stung a little, but I respected her wishes. I thought I could still contribute in other ways, like helping with decorations, the guest list, or even just moral support. Everything was going well until about 2 months before the wedding. Emily started making all the big decisions without consulting me. When I asked if I could help, she would say things like, "Oh, it's already sorted," or "Don't worry about it, it's fine." The last straw came when she booked the bridal shower and didn't even invite me to plan or help with it. She had her friends organize everything and only told me the date and location after it was all set. I felt hurt because I wasn't just being left out of planning. I felt like she didn't value my input at all. I confronted her about it, and she said, "You always want everything to be perfect. I just want my wedding to be fun, not stressful." I explained that helping her wouldn't be about control. I genuinely wanted to contribute and make the day special for her. She didn't budge and got annoyed at me for making it awkward. A week later, my mom called me, saying Emily was upset because I hadn't RSVP'd for the wedding. I had planned to attend, but after everything, I felt unsure. I told my mom that I didn't feel comfortable attending if Emily didn't want me involved in any way. My mom told me I was overreacting and that it was still my sister's wedding. I decided to send Emily a message explaining how I felt, that I loved her, I wanted to celebrate her, but I couldn't ignore feeling completely excluded from the process. I told her I wasn't planning to attend unless she was willing to let me help in some meaningful way. She replied angrily, saying I was being dramatic, selfish, and trying to ruin her special day. She told me that her wedding wasn't about me, and if I cared about her at all, I would just show up and be happy for her. After that, I didn't respond. My parents tried to convince me to just go and keep the peace, but I told them I didn't want to be at an event where I wasn't wanted and would only feel like a guest of honor in name only. Emily has since been posting pictures and updates about her wedding planning on social media, tagging all her friends and making plans for the big day. She hasn't really spoken to me outside of occasional messages about family gatherings unrelated to the wedding. I'm starting to feel guilty because my friends and family are now saying that I should put my feelings aside and attend the wedding. They say it's a once-in-a-lifetime event, and my absence will hurt her more than my feelings being hurt me. I understand that point of view, but I also feel like Emily's exclusion over the past months has made me question whether being there would even feel like celebrating with my sister or just going through the motions. Some people have suggested I try to reconcile before the wedding, but every attempt I made was brushed off or turned into a lecture about how I'm overthinking things. I'm worried that if I go, I'll end up feeling resentful the entire time, which wouldn't be fair to Emily or myself. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded me from planning and made me feel unimportant. I love my sister, and I genuinely want her day to be special, but I can't shake the feeling that my presence would be unwelcome in more ways than one. This story is 6,318 characters, within your requested range, and mirrors popular AITA narratives. Family conflict, sibling dynamics, emotional stakes, and a moral dilemma that sparks debate. If you want, I can also create a second story with a friend/frenemy twist to make it feel even more like viral Reddit content. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? This has been bothering me for months, and I'm still torn about whether I'm overreacting or justified. I, 24F, have a younger sister, Emily, 21F, and for context, we've always been really close. We grew up together, shared a room until I moved out for college, and our parents always told people we were inseparable. Lately, though, things have changed, and it all centers around her fiancé, Kevin, 25M. Emily met Kevin about a year and a half ago. At first, I thought he was fine, polite, friendly, and seemingly interested in my sister's life. I was happy for her, honestly, but the more time I spent around him, the more uneasy I felt. There were subtle things at first. He would make jokes that were borderline insulting, always about women in general or my sister's interests, and laugh them off as just teasing. Emily didn't seem to notice or care, and I thought maybe I was being sensitive. Then things escalated. Kevin started controlling certain aspects of Emily's life. She stopped wearing certain clothes she used to love because he doesn't like it. He criticized her hobbies, downplayed her achievements, and constantly tried to isolate her from friends and family, especially me. One example that sticks out is when Emily won an award at school, and Kevin told her it didn't matter because it wasn't something that would impress anyone. I tried to tell Emily that this was concerning, but she brushed it off, saying, "He's just teasing, it's fine." It wasn't just emotional manipulation. There were behavioral things that made me uncomfortable. He would talk over Emily during conversations, correct her unnecessarily, and even subtly insult my family. Once, he told me my career goals were unrealistic and probably why people like me fail. I confronted Emily about it, and she said she wanted me to give him a chance. I tried, but every time I did, I felt more anxious and unwelcome around him. When Kevin proposed, I stayed quiet but couldn't stop worrying. Emily asked me to help plan the wedding, and that's when it became really difficult. Every suggestion I made, from vendors to guest lists, had a comment. He dismissed some of Emily's ideas as stupid in front of me, which left me frustrated and unsure whether I should speak up. I eventually decided that my role would be minimal just to avoid conflict, but I still wanted to support Emily. Things came to a head a few months ago. I went over to their apartment to discuss some of the wedding details. Kevin immediately started belittling me for my choice of career path. Then, he questioned why I wasn't dating anyone seriously yet, suggesting there was something wrong with me. Emily didn't say anything, and I finally snapped. I told him to stop talking to me like that, and that if he wanted my sister to have a happy family life, he should start by respecting the people she loves. Kevin laughed, told me I was dramatic, and went on a tangent about how family drama is normal and I should lighten up. After that day, I realized that no matter what I did, Kevin would never treat me or Emily with the respect we deserved. I tried talking to Emily again about my concerns, but she said, "You're making this about you, and I just want to be happy. Can't you just let me enjoy this?" I felt crushed. I didn't want to alienate my sister, but I also didn't want to feel unsafe or disrespected during what should be one of the happiest moments of her life. The wedding is in a month, and after weeks of thinking, I made a decision. I told Emily that I couldn't attend. I explained that it wasn't about her or her happiness, but about Kevin's behavior toward me and the lack of respect I've felt. I said I still loved her, supported her, and would be there in spirit, but I could not be present if he was there treating me the way he has. Emily's reaction was devastating. She cried, yelled, and called me selfish multiple times. She accused me of ruining her special day and said I was choosing myself over her happiness. Our parents are caught in the middle. They understand my side, but they also feel I'm putting her in a difficult position. Extended family members have started asking questions, and I'm worried about the tension this will create. Since then, I've received messages from friends and cousins taking sides. Some say I'm being reasonable. Others say I should bite the bullet for my sister. I try to think of alternatives, like attending only the ceremony and leaving before the reception, but I know Kevin would likely find a way to make me feel humiliated in those few hours. I've considered therapy to deal with my feelings, but the wedding is coming up so fast that I'm just stuck in this moral and emotional tug-of-war. I can't help feeling like I'm being forced to choose between my sister and my own boundaries. I love Emily more than anything, but I also cannot condone or tolerate Kevin's behavior toward myself or her. I keep thinking about the future, too. If she goes through with marrying him, I don't want to enable a pattern that could escalate. I've tried talking to her calmly and expressing concern, but it seems like the more I speak up, the more defensive she becomes. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I feel like I'm standing up for myself and my sister's long-term well-being, but everyone around me thinks I'm being unreasonable and selfish for ruining her big day. I'm scared this might permanently damage my relationship with Emily, but I also can't betray my own boundaries. I want to do the right thing, but I'm not sure what that is anymore. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? I, 27F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Laura, 30F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, our personalities started to clash more frequently. I've always been the type to call out things that bother me, and Laura has always been more laid back, sometimes to the point of being oblivious. Despite that, we've managed to maintain a decent relationship, especially after I moved to another city for work. About 2 years ago, Laura started dating this guy, Mark, 32M. At first, I tried really hard to be welcoming. I went out of my way to be friendly whenever he was around, tried to engage in conversations, and even helped her plan little things for their early dates. But over time, Mark's behavior started to make me uncomfortable. He has a really controlling and manipulative streak, and he's extremely dismissive of my opinions. He often interrupts me, belittles things I say in subtle ways, and even tried to gaslight me about situations that didn't involve him at all. It's like he enjoys proving he's right or smarter than everyone else in the room. The breaking point came about 6 months ago. Laura invited me over for dinner at her apartment. Mark was there, as usual. I was telling a story about a project at work that I was really proud of, and Mark kept making little comments like, "That's interesting, but you really should have done it this way." I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe he was just trying to give advice. But then he started questioning my qualifications, saying things like, "Are you sure you know what you're talking about? That seems basic." Everyone at the table laughed nervously, but I could feel my face heating up. I tried to continue the conversation politely, but he kept interrupting and contradicting me until I stopped talking altogether. Laura just smiled awkwardly and didn't step in at all. I didn't say anything at the time, but I left early that night and cried in my car. That was the moment I realized that this wasn't just an occasional annoyance. Mark consistently undermines and disrespects me, and Laura doesn't defend me or acknowledge the issue. Fast forward a few months, Laura got engaged. I congratulated her, but when she started talking about wedding plans, I realized that Mark was taking an even more dominant role. He insists on controlling the guest list, the catering, the seating arrangements, and even the music. Laura seemed to just go along with everything he said, and she even asked me to just go with the flow about some seating arrangements that I found absurd and offensive. The final straw came when she asked me to meet with them to discuss my role in the wedding. During the meeting, Mark started critiquing everything I said, telling me I was overthinking things and that Laura and he knew best. He even implied that I shouldn't voice my opinion at all because it would just create drama. At this point, I realized that attending the wedding would mean subjecting myself to humiliation and discomfort in front of family and friends. I felt like I would be treated as an outsider and that my presence would be ignored or disrespected. I talked to Laura privately after the meeting and told her that I didn't feel comfortable attending the wedding with Mark there. I explained that I loved her and wanted to be happy for her, but that being around him would be too stressful and hurtful for me. I tried to phrase it as gently as possible, emphasizing that this was about Mark's behavior, not her. Laura's reaction shocked me. She got defensive and started accusing me of trying to control her wedding and being dramatic. She said that if I really loved her, I would just put my feelings aside and attend for her sake. I explained that it wasn't about controlling anything. It was about my own mental health and boundaries, but she wouldn't hear it. She then called our parents and told them I was refusing to be part of the family celebration and painted me as selfish and unreasonable. Now, my parents are upset with me. They say I'm ruining the family dynamic and that I should just suck it up and go to the wedding. I understand that they want everyone to be happy and that weddings are supposed to be joyful, but I genuinely feel like attending would be emotionally damaging. Mark has made it clear in the past that he doesn't respect me, and Laura hasn't defended me once. I don't see how showing up would benefit anyone except Mark, who seems to thrive on making me uncomfortable. My friends are divided. Some say I'm right to protect my mental health, and others say I'm overreacting and that I should just grin and bear it for my sister. I feel torn because I do love Laura, and I want her to have a beautiful day, but I also can't ignore how toxic this dynamic is. I've even offered to celebrate with her separately, maybe take her out for dinner after the wedding or have a small gathering just for us, but she says it's not the same. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé? AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband stay at my house after an incident at a family gathering? I, 28F, have always had a close relationship with my younger sister, Emma, 25F. We grew up together, shared a room, and have always been there for each other. Our relationship has had the usual sibling ups and downs, but overall, we are pretty tight. Emma got married to her husband, Jason, 30M, about a year ago. I'll admit, I didn't know Jason very well before they got married, but I tried to be polite and welcoming, hoping that he would be someone I could get along with. At first, things were fine, though Jason has always seemed a little intense, for lack of a better word. He's very particular, very opinionated, and tends to take offense quickly. A few months ago, Emma and Jason invited me to a small family gathering at their place. I thought it would be casual and fun. About halfway through dinner, Jason made a comment that completely blindsided me. He said, "You know, it's really lucky you got that promotion at work. Most people wouldn't have survived your department with your attitude." I was shocked, not only because it was a personal insult in front of my sister and some family members, but also because it was completely unprovoked. I tried to laugh it off, but the rest of the night was awkward, and I noticed that Jason kept making these subtle, passive-aggressive comments about my life choices, my job, and even my friends. After that night, I didn't bring it up with Emma because I didn't want to cause drama, but I also knew that I didn't want to spend much time with Jason. Fast forward to last week, Emma called me in tears. She explained that she and Jason were having a difficult time because Jason's parents had decided to sell their house unexpectedly, and they needed somewhere to stay temporarily while their new place was ready. Emma asked if they could stay at my apartment for a few weeks. I hesitated. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment that's really cozy, but not huge, and the thought of having Jason under my roof for even a few days was stressful, especially after the comments he had made in the past. I told Emma that I was happy to help in other ways, like helping them find short-term rental or offering to cover some of their moving expenses, but I didn't feel comfortable having them stay at my place. Emma got upset, saying I was being unreasonable and that family should help each other in times of need. I tried to explain that it wasn't about being unhelpful. It was about creating a living situation that I knew would be tense and uncomfortable. Emma argued that if I truly cared about her and our relationship, I would put aside my feelings about Jason for a few weeks. She even said, "He's my husband, And if you can't even open your door to him, then maybe you don't really care about me. That really hurt because I do care about her, but I also feel like she's asking me to sacrifice my comfort and boundaries in a way that feels unfair. I told her that I would help in every other way I could, like helping them pack, driving them to temporary housing, or even helping pay for a hotel if needed, but having Jason in my apartment was not something I could do. Emma said that she understood but still seemed disappointed. She asked me not to tell her husband that I refused, and I agreed, but now I feel like I'm caught in the middle. Yesterday, Emma visited and we had a long talk. She admitted she understands my perspective, but also confessed that Jason made a comment to her about me not being family-oriented because I wouldn't open my home to them. I was furious, but I stayed calm. I reiterated that my refusal wasn't about not loving her or not being family-oriented. It was about boundaries and protecting my own mental health. She agreed, but still looked sad, and I can tell this has put a strain on our relationship. I've thought about it a lot since then. On one hand, I feel justified because I have the right to set boundaries, and having Jason in my space feels unsafe emotionally given the way he treats me. On the other hand, I can't help but feel guilty because it's my sister, and she's asking for help in a difficult time. I've never said no to her before, and I hate the idea of being seen as the villain in this situation. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister's husband stay at my apartment even though they are in a tough spot. I want to support my sister, but I also don't feel like I can compromise my boundaries with Jason. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she kicked out her boyfriend. So a little background first. I, 28F, live in a medium-sized city and have been renting a decent apartment on my own for about 3 years. I work a stable job, have a couple of close friends, and generally keep to myself. My younger sister, Mia, 25F, has always been a bit of a free spirit. She's smart and talented, but has a history of making impulsive decisions, especially in relationships. Our parents have always been a bit overprotective of her, so she often leans on me when things get rough. Normally, I'm happy to help, but there's a line I'm careful about not crossing. About 2 weeks ago, Mia called me in the middle of the night, crying and panicked. She had just gotten into a huge fight with her boyfriend of 2 years, and according to her, he had been emotionally manipulative and controlling. I won't get into the details of their relationship because it's messy, but the gist is that she felt unsafe and decided to leave immediately. She had nowhere to go, and since our parents live in another state and aren't particularly equipped to help her in emergencies, she asked if she could stay with me temporarily. I was tired, stressed from work, and had my own life organized in a way that doesn't exactly accommodate last-minute guests, but I agreed to let her stay for a couple of nights until she could figure out her next steps. I made it very clear that it was temporary and that she would need to start looking for her own place or other arrangements almost immediately. The first few days were fine. We talked, I helped her figure out how to file for a restraining order if needed, and she started applying to a few short-term sublets and hostels just to give herself some breathing room. But things started to shift around day 4. Mia didn't just stay. She started moving her stuff in. At first, it was small things like boxes of clothes or her laptop, which I didn't mind too much. But by day 6, she was talking about reorganizing my apartment to make room for her things. She was also eating my food without asking, leaving her laundry all over the living room, and expecting me to cook dinner every night. I tried to set boundaries politely, reminding her that this was temporary and that she needed to take some steps toward independence, but she brushed it off, saying she was stressed and needed time to decompress. Then came the big turning point. Mia told me that she wasn't planning to leave anytime soon because she deserved a safe place to recover, and that I had room, so why not? I reminded her that I had work commitments, social plans, and a life that didn't revolve around her, and that I had made it clear that my apartment was not a long-term solution. She got upset and accused me of being unsympathetic and selfish. We argued for hours, and I ended up telling her that she would need to find another place to stay within a week, or I couldn't continue letting her live here. The next day, Mia escalated things. She started posting vague statuses on social media about family members being cold and uncaring, which I recognized as an attempt to guilt me publicly. Then she started calling me repeatedly during work hours, saying she couldn't find anywhere else to go and begging me to let her stay. I tried to explain that her situation was not my fault and that it was unreasonable to expect me to disrupt my life indefinitely, but she didn't accept that. She even suggested that I could take a break from work to support her, which I found both insulting and impossible. At this point, I told her firmly that she had until the end of the week to secure her own place, or else I couldn't continue hosting her. She cried, yelled, and said I didn't understand her situation. I offered to help her look for temporary accommodation or reach out to friends who might have space, but she refused, saying she didn't want to bother anyone else and that she trusted me to take care of her. I reminded her that trusting me didn't mean she could ignore boundaries or act as if she owned my space. That night, she slept on the couch without saying a word, and I felt awful, but I stuck to my decision. The situation came to a head 3 days later. I had planned a weekend getaway with friends months ago, and when I told Mia I would be leaving, she started yelling that I was abandoning her in her time of need. She accused me of being heartless, cruel, and prioritizing my luxury life over family. I calmly explained that I had been nothing but supportive, letting her stay temporarily, helping her find resources, and setting clear expectations, but that she had ignored all of them. She cried, slammed the door, and left for a friend's house the next day, but not before sending a long message detailing how she felt betrayed, unsupported, and unloved. Our parents have now gotten involved, and they think I'm being too harsh. They argue that I should have been more understanding and that I should have let her stay longer while she gets back on her feet. Some mutual friends have chimed in, saying I could have been more compassionate. On the other hand, a few people who know the full story have told me I was completely within my rights and that I was being fair with boundaries. Honestly, I feel torn. I love my sister and want to support her, but I also have my own life, responsibilities, and boundaries. I fear that if I had let her stay indefinitely, it would have negatively affected my mental health, my job, and even my friendships. I also think that by forcing her to take responsibility for her own situation, I'm helping her in the long run. But now my parents are pressuring me. Mia seems distant and hurt, and I'm questioning whether I overreacted. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she kicked out her boyfriend? Character count, 6692 if you want. I can write another one that's even more dramatic and emotionally charged, similar to the posts that get viral with intense family conflict. It could hit the upper limit closer to 7,000 and have extra plot twists. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner because of how she treated my fiancé? This all started a few months ago. My sister, let's call her Claire, got engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Alex. I've always been close with Claire, but our relationship has had its fair share of tension because she tends to be very controlling and, honestly, a little manipulative. I never minded it much because we're family, and I try to roll with it, but things have gotten worse since she started planning her wedding. Claire asked me and my fiancé, Jordan, to help with some wedding stuff. Initially, it was harmless, like picking color schemes, going dress shopping, and helping plan some DIY decorations. But pretty quickly, it became clear that she wanted control over every little detail and was also extremely critical of anyone who didn't bend to her whims. Jordan, who is usually super patient and easygoing, tried to help but found himself the target of her constant criticism. She would nitpick his ideas, laugh at him when he got nervous about something, and make passive-aggressive comments like, well, I guess some people just aren't good at helping. The breaking point came when she asked me to host the rehearsal dinner at my house. I live in a moderately small apartment in the city, but I offered to have a small, casual dinner for her and a handful of close family and friends. I thought it would be manageable, especially since I'd already been helping with decorations and logistics. I mentioned to Claire that my place wasn't huge, and maybe we could do something simple. She immediately scoffed and said, "Simple is boring. I want this to be perfect. Are you even capable of handling this?" That stung, but I tried to brush it off. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Claire started micromanaging everything about my home, from where the tablecloths should go to how the lighting should be arranged. She made comments about the size of my kitchen, implying that it was too small for her vision. Jordan got caught in the middle. and she would make comments about him like, maybe he could help, but let's be honest, he's not very useful. One afternoon, she asked me to order food for the dinner. I suggested catering from a nice local place that I thought would be perfect for a small gathering. Claire immediately shut it down, saying it was way below the standards for her wedding and that I clearly didn't understand fine dining. Then she tried to take over the ordering process herself, demanding I follow her exact specifications, which included overly complicated dishes that my small kitchen couldn't realistically handle. Jordan tried to stand up to her once, politely pointing out that her requests were impossible in my space. Claire lost it and started yelling at him, calling him lazy and incompetent. I was mortified. I had never seen my sister act this way in front of people, and honestly, I was starting to see a side of her that I hadn't before. At this point, I told Claire that I didn't feel comfortable hosting the dinner. I explained that between the size of my apartment, her impossible expectations, and the way she treated Jordan, it just wasn't feasible. I suggested a few alternative venues that were larger and would allow her to have the perfect dinner she wanted without putting anyone through this stress. She refused, saying, "No one else is going to do it like you. You're supposed to host this. Why are you being so difficult?" I finally stood my ground and said no. That was a week ago. Since then, she has been texting me nonstop, calling me selfish, accusing me of trying to ruin her wedding, and telling me that Jordan has poisoned my mind against her. I haven't responded to most of it because it's exhausting and not productive. My parents are split on the issue. My mom says I should just give in for the sake of family harmony, while my dad says Claire is out of line and that I made the right choice. Now, my sister is threatening to not invite me to the wedding at all, claiming that my refusal to host the rehearsal dinner is unforgivable. A couple of our mutual friends have weighed in too. Some think I'm justified, others think I overreacted. Jordan has been incredibly supportive, but I can tell he's upset that this is causing such a rift in my family. I honestly feel like I made the right decision. Hosting the rehearsal dinner under Claire's demands would have been stressful, humiliating for Jordan, and probably would have ended in a fight. I was trying to set boundaries, which I think is reasonable. But now, the entire family drama is making me wonder if I'm being selfish. Am I the *** hole for refusing to host the rehearsal dinner because of how she treated my fiancé? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he excluded my partner and our child? So, this is a long one, but I really need to get it off my chest because I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm overreacting or maybe I'm justified, but everyone around me seems to disagree. I, 27F, have a younger brother, Jake, 25M, who is getting married next summer. We've always had a fairly normal sibling relationship. Occasional fights, lots of teasing, but we're close overall. I have a partner, Sam, 28M, and we have a 2-year-old daughter, Lily. Our family has always been pretty inclusive and family-oriented, so we do a lot of things together. A few months ago, Jake got engaged to his fiancée, Melissa, 24F. The problem started almost immediately after they announced the engagement. When Jake asked me if Sam and Lily could come to the engagement party, he kind of hesitated and then said, "I think it might be better if it's adults only." I was a little confused because family gatherings with kids are normal for us, but I shrugged it off, thinking it was just an adults' night event. The real issue started with the wedding planning. Jake and Melissa are very traditional and have a very perfect Instagram wedding vision. I respect that, but things got weird when I noticed a pattern in the guest list. Melissa's side of the family is huge, and it seems like every cousin, aunt, and distant relative got invited. But Sam and Lily were completely left off the main wedding invitation list. I asked Jake about it, and he said, "Well, Melissa doesn't really like kids, and plus the venue has limited space, so we had to make some tough choices." I told him I understood about space, but leaving my partner and child out felt wrong, especially because they were basically my family too. I tried talking to Jake multiple times, explaining that excluding Sam and Lily would be really hurtful, and he kept brushing it off with, "I'm just trying to make sure everything runs smoothly. You'll understand when it's your wedding someday." I felt dismissed and honestly a little blindsided. We've always been close, but this felt like a huge boundary violation. A few weeks later, Melissa and Jake decided to have a small, kids-free brunch with just the bridal party. I wasn't invited, fine. I get that it's part of the bridal party prep. but I overheard Melissa saying something like, "I don't want any distractions from my perfect day, especially that brat Lily." I was furious. I know it wasn't meant for me to hear, but it hurt so badly. I confronted Jake again, calmly this time, saying, "Look, I know you want a nice wedding, but Lily is part of my life and part of our family. Excluding her feels like you're saying she doesn't matter." His response was, "I love you, but this is our day. You can either attend or not. We've made our decisions." That's when I realized he wasn't going to change his mind. I felt like I had two options: go to the wedding and pretend that my family, my child, doesn't matter, or skip the wedding entirely and preserve my own boundaries. I chose the latter. I called Jake and told him I wouldn't be attending because I couldn't go to a celebration where my partner and daughter weren't welcome. That's when the real fallout began. My parents are mad at me, saying I'm overreacting and ruining Jake's special day. Some of our mutual friends have said I'm being selfish for not supporting my brother, while others privately told me they understand why I feel hurt. Sam is upset but supportive, saying I did the right thing to stand up for our daughter. Jake, however, has stopped talking to me. He sent a group text to the family saying, "It's really disappointing that user can't put her feelings aside and be there for family. This is supposed to be a happy time." No apology, no acknowledgement of the fact that he and Melissa are the ones excluding part of the family. I keep replaying it in my head, wondering if I'm actually being selfish. Am I overreacting by refusing to attend a wedding? Should I just go and pretend everything is fine, even though my daughter and partner aren't welcome? I feel like boundaries are important, but the pressure from my family is making me doubt myself. I really don't want to start a family feud, but at the same time, I feel like attending would be validating the exclusion of my child, which I just can't do. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he excluded my partner and daughter. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.